Hello, welcome to day 3 of the preacher life. So far, we've covered the first few chapters of Genesis, and yesterday we got into the flood, and it's a new day here, and I've done some editing, and I realized in the first video I said that the plan that I've been doing is chronological. That's incorrect. That's what I've been doing the last couple years. This year, I should have said the beginning plan. And I am reading out of the New King James Version, and that would be a good version to read online, or the ESV. It's also good, or whatever translation you prefer. Now, today, we are going to start at Genesis 11. Now, the flood has been complete, and Noah's descendants are working on spreading out, but they have not quite done that. Now, Noah's descendants, from him and his sons, they are, of course, one family who all spoke the same language. And that's what we pick up at now here on Genesis 11. Now the whole earth had one language and one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They had brick and stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." Now, if you remember from yesterday, God had commanded Noah and his sons to produce offspring, or to have families, and to spread throughout the whole earth. Here we see their descendants, not that long after, are wanting to not obey this command and stay put in one place. So we continue on, verse 5. "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, Indeed, the people are one, and they all have one language, and this is what they began to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore, its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Now, one of the problems that I've heard that people try to say, we cannot be of all one family, or all descendants of Adam and Eve, is because there are so many different people groups. There are different shades of skin, there are different eye shapes, and lots of physical differences. But if you look at dogs, for instance, if you take two Great Danes and have a pair of them, and they have puppies, well, they'll look like their parents. But if you have a mixture, then their offspring will look mixture as well. Well, Adam and Eve were our original parents, and they had a great deal of genetic variability built into them. And as we see today, we can get couples that have twins that have a lighter brown shade of skin, and a darker shade of skin. And here in the Tower of Babel, we can see that with everyone spread out across the face of the earth, then different people groups got isolated, and therefore genetic traits got isolated within those groups. So therefore, if you had a couple that have, say, lighter skin, well, their children got the same with a darker shade of skin, and eye shape, and all the different ethnic differences we see from around the world. It's not because we aren't related, it's just because that is what the gene pools got to be, and they're spread out from here at the Tower of Babel. Now, after Genesis 11, we don't see generic so much of people starting in the last half of Genesis 11 into 12. We start concentrating more on Abraham, or one person and his descendants, which became the people of Israel. So the next couple of chapters, we work on Abram, or Abraham, as he became. And then in Genesis 15, verse 13, we see God's promise to Abraham. I'll start here at Genesis 15, verse 12. Now when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell on Abram, and behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. Then he, or God, said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. And also the nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward they will come out with great possessions. So at this point, Abram didn't have any offspring, but God was telling him of the future, of what his plans were for him. And through the rest of the book of Genesis, we see Abram and his family of Isaac, and then going on to Jacob and his 12 descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. And one of those descendants was Joseph, who I talked about last week, and I'll have a link up here in the description, or up in the corner, excuse me. But we'll now go ahead and fast forward quite a bit to the book of Exodus. Now, by the time of Exodus, Joseph had lived in Egypt and his people for several years. It's still winter, and pigs like to stick together. So I'm picking up now Exodus 1, verse 8. Now there was a new king over Egypt, who did not know Joseph, and he said to his people, look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply. And it happened in the event of war that they also join our enemies and fight against us, and so go up out of the land. Therefore, They set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were in dread of the children of Israel. So the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and brick and in all manner of service in the field. All their service in which they made them serve was with rigor. So just as God told Abram, his descendants, the Israelites, would serve their nation with hard work. And that is what we see now in Exodus. But God raised up a deliverer for them, and by the name of Moses. So we go a little bit further here in Exodus, and we read about Moses and his upbringing and how Pharaoh took him and raised him up. But now moving on to Exodus 3. Moses is in the desert tending the flock of his father-in-law. So starting at verse 1. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, I'll now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw, he turned aside to look. God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he's afraid to look upon God. So, reading more in chapter 3, this is where God commissions Moses to free the Israelites through God's power. But, like a lot of us, Moses did not want to do this. He wanted to have someone sent out. And Exodus 4, verse 10, we see where this complaint is. Then Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, either before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. So in other words, Moses had a speech impediment that he couldn't speak very well. But the Lord answered in verse 11. So the Lord said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes them mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall say. So remember that the Lord is in control of all things, and he will use us and give us the ability to serve him. So who goes and preaches if they can't move anything below their neck, can't breathe on their own, and don't speak real clearly, especially if they have a big stick in their mouth? But we can still be used even if we're just talking to a camera in the middle of our bedroom. But God allows us to be used by him no matter what's going on. So continuing on through Exodus and next chapters, we see how God delivers his people through very bad plagues that he inflicts on Egypt. And through all these, he demonstrates his power. And these are great to read through, which I suggest. And if you keep up with reading plans, you will soon. So after the 10 plagues, we get up to Exodus chapter 12 here. And I know I'm skipping a lot, and we may go back and look at things more detailed, but I'm just trying to get caught up now to where our reading plan is here in March. So in Exodus 12, we read about the Passover, how it is instituted. And then the last plague is the death of the firstborn in Egypt. And after this, then Pharaoh of Egypt wanted Israelites to leave, and he told them to go quickly. And in the process, Israel also plundered the country. So if I read Exodus 12, starting here at verse 40. Now the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, on that very same day, it came to pass that all the armies of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night of solemn observance to the Lord for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord, a solemn observance for all the children of Israel throughout their generations. Now, we read here it's 430 years, and the promise given to Abram was 400 years. So we have a difference of 30 years there. But if you look carefully at what was told to Abraham, that they would be in bondage for 400 years. And there was a few years that Israel lived in Egypt and had the blessing of the rulers. So that is likely where the 30 years came from. Or it was also this rounding when Abram was told of the future of his people. So after Exodus 12, the Israelites escape Egypt, and they go through the Red Sea, which is how God delivered them from the army of Pharaoh. So that is where we will stop today. Tomorrow we'll start looking at what God gave his people and how to serve them. So thank you for following up on this series, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye for now.